Hey, Jim Dunaway from the next round. We're ready to relive the weekend in Southeastern Conference football with our friends at Cowin Equipment. We're fired up for another year. Before we look back, though, let me remind you, our friends at Cowin Equipment would love the opportunity to partner with your company for your heavy equipment needs. Visit Cowin.com to find out more about how Cowin can be your heavy equipment solution, from rental and new equipment sales to great service and parts. Check out Cowin Equipment's rental fleet hit list for a wide range of well-maintained equipment from their rental fleet for sale right now. Go to the website, Cowin.com, Cowin.com. Now let's talk a little football.
You know, if I would have told you guys Auburn was 11 of 19 on third downs, 460 total yards, 468 total yards, and 0 turnovers.
You could have convinced me they lost in a tight shootout, a play late, right? That Mississippi State – or excuse me, that Arkansas just made a play late in the game. It came down to one final possession. You could have convinced me of that. I know you wanted what you were getting as I couldn't convince you they lose. Yeah, with that defense, you could convince me they lose, but I would have guessed they lost in a track meet.
That's what's amazing, though, is that we thought Auburn's defense, that's the one thing that you could really lean on this year.
Yeah, it's been bad.
It's been terrible, especially against the run. And, that was one of the things that I said coming into this game. I liked Auburn. I don't know why. It didn't make any sense because Auburn can't stop the run, and they didn't stop the run. 286 rushing yards for Arkansas and 41 points.
Yeah, it wasn't even a dominant rushing performance from Arkansas. They just sort of, dripped them to death.
Second half was, though. 216 in the second half.
Well, Rocket Sanders got banged up a little bit, or it could have been a much worse day.
He had 171, and, he didn't play his best, and as you said, he wasn't 100%.
Yeah, so Auburn loses, but the big story, Brownie, and you sort of have been back-channeling this guy. Auburn seemed to have made an athletic director move over the weekend, which is huge, because that's the guy that's going to hire the next coach.
It is. It looks like John Cowin is going to be the guy, the Mississippi State athletics director, former baseball coach there. And there has been this long-held school of thought that that's what everybody was waiting on to fire Brian Harsin, is get athletic director in place. Then you can let the school president, do the firing, do the dirty work, let the athletic director come in and say, hey, look, I wasn't here for Coach Harsin. We wish him the best. I'm here to make Auburn football better.
Biggest game of the weekend, was it Georgia's over Florida or Tennessee over Kentucky when it comes to the SEC?
To me, it was Tennessee over Kentucky. We kind of knew what was going to happen with Florida-Georgia. It was a weird third quarter with Florida scoring 17 points, but, that game was dominated. It was 28-3 at half. They were a 23.5-point favorite. I fully expected Georgia to win going away. On the other side, I thought Kentucky could keep this game close. A couple of reasons. Kentucky's defense, their ability to run the football with Chris Rodriguez, and Will Levis had a career game last year against his defense, and the secondary seemed worse, but I'll tell you how bad Will Levis was. I started him in fantasy and had minus points. How do you have minus points for a college quarterback?
That is interceptions and sacks.
Yeah. It's pretty bad, isn't it?
But, he was awful with the 3 picks. And people that continue to say he's a first-round selection, I just don't get it.
I don't see it, man. Yeah. I don't see it. The next time I see that guy look like a first-round quarterback could be the first time, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Hendon Hooker looks like one every time he's out.
Yeah. To answer your question, Hendon Hooker looks like the Heisman Trophy winner right now. Stroud came back and had a good finish to that game Saturday. I know we'll get to Ohio State, Penn State, especially with Klatt. But Stroud wasn't fantastic in the first half of that game. And I'm sitting there thinking Hendon Hooker's going to have a good stage tonight. If Stroud continues to struggle, he could literally seize the lead in this thing. To answer your question, I think the most important game was Kentucky-Tennessee. Here's why. Georgia still has the home game, right? So Tennessee still got to go to Athens. Even if Georgia had been upset by Florida, they would still be hosting Tennessee with a chance to still win the East.
Yeah.
If you're Tennessee and you lose to Kentucky, now I got to go to Georgia and win.
I get that going to SEC championship game. I'm just talking about what I saw on Saturday. Now Saturday becomes a lot more interesting to me.
It does, because Tennessee looks like they can beat Georgia in Athens. And that's, I think, what a lot of the AP voters said. If you missed that, Georgia hangs on at number 1 with 30 first-place votes. Tennessee, forget the Heisman, Tennessee, the football team, moved into a tie in the AP poll with Ohio State. They've got more first-place votes than Ohio State. And across the country, every analyst says tomorrow night when the college football rankings come out that Tennessee will be the number 1 team in the college football rankings.
I was about to ask you if you thought they would be. I was talking at church yesterday with a big Tennessee fan, and he asked me what I thought. And I said, listen, a win over Alabama goes a long way in the eyes of that committee. Alabama's very well respected in that committee. I said, you got to start looking at everybody's biggest win. I said Georgia's is Oregon, which is still big. Oregon's
good.
top 10 day. Oregon keeps winning.
Looks better every day.
Yeah, I said, but a win over Alabama. I said probably a lot of that committee thought Alabama was either number 1 or number 2 when you beat them. So I think that'll go a long way. You've looked really, really good. I'll be surprised if Tennessee's not number 1.
Here's Josh Heupel on I think he's stating the obvious here, which is why I think they've got a chance to beat Georgia this weekend.
The reason we found a way to be on the right side of it every week is because they've been focused. They prepare, they practice, and they get themselves ready emotionally and physically to go play hard once the ball is kicked off all week long. I thought we were very dialed in and locked into the process. Good teams get better throughout the season. This football team's got to continue to get better here as we get on the back half of the season.
Good teams do get better throughout the years. And if you look at, I mean, the teams that are projected to win national championships and go on and play for it, you see ebbs and flows. Like an Alabama team sometimes will ebb and flow throughout the season, a Clemson, Ohio State. But if you go back to that, I don't want to call them one-offs, but they end up in hindsight being one-offs. 2010 Auburn, 2019 LSU, two teams we saw up close and personal here in this state.
Couldn't sustain it, yeah.
That 2010 Auburn team, if you were going to beat them, you were going to beat them in September, right? That Kentucky fourth down, Cam going out of bounds, he completes an unbelievable pass. They saved the game in Lexington. By the time they're playing at the SEC championship game, that was a machine. LSU in Austin, back and forth game, lucky to get out of Austin with a win. They come to Tuscaloosa. By that point, they're a machine. They beat Alabama. By the time they're playing for the national, they're a machine. This Tennessee team Pittsburgh was their Austin. Pittsburgh was their Kentucky. They survived that game at Pittsburgh, and this team gets better and better and better. That defense looked, it was against a first-round draft pick, I'm told. It looked so good against Kentucky.
It's hard to believe in hindsight that watching Pitt get run off the field by North Carolina in the second half Saturday night, that Tennessee almost lost that game. I mean, in hindsight, that's hard to believe.
If Pittsburgh stays healthy at quarterback with either one or two, they win that game.
I know. But Dunaway's right. I mean, you can always go back to not always. A lot of times you can go back to championship teams and say, hey, there was that game in September. They could have easily lost.
Yep.
And you know what? They get better. The thing I just continue to be impressed about with Heupel, and I don't know how long I have to own it. I mean, y'all can tell me, Brown, you've said it enough. I was so wrong on this guy, obviously, okay? I got this guy wrong.
Well, you don't have to say it every week. I'm just saying we hold the right to bring it back up next year,
please,
and the year
please,
after,
please,
and the year after.
I'm obviously wrong on it. But anyway, his sideline demeanor is what stands out to me. The guy is just so in control of his emotions. And there's different ways to coach. I mean, you could say Nick Saban's not in control of his emotions. A lot of times he blows his stack on somebody, right? Lane Kiffin celebrates, big plays and does a lot of fist pumping and all that. Both those guys have been successful, but I just like Heupel's demeanor. Yeah, they show him on the sideline. The guy's just maybe it's not just his demeanor, but it just looks like his sideline is in control of the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You could see it last year just with the improvements and especially what they were doing offensively. I didn't think they were going to be a complete team this year. I thought they were more like an 8, maybe a 9-win team. It's a legit team.
I'm sorry. Hang on one second. There is it has happened, guys. Yeah. We've got the breaking news here.
Oh, wow.
Auburn University has decided, this is from Auburn, decided to make a change in the leadership of the Auburn University football program. President Roberts made the decision after a thorough review and evaluation of all aspects of the football program. Auburn will begin an immediate search for a coach that will return the Auburn program to a place where it is consistently competing at the highest levels and representing the winning tradition that is Auburn football. Official, that's not reports, that is official from Auburn University.
So we knew what would happen today.
With us in costume?
Yep.
Yeah. So historically, this will be the way we break the news of an Auburn coaching change. So Brian Harsin officially letting go. We're about to get the release up. Forrester is working on that, so you can see that.
Hey, when you were getting dressed, I brought this up.
So it comes at 11:54 that Auburn is making a coaching change.
So they've lost 8 of their last 9 SEC games. That's
right.
really hard to do.
It is, unless you go back and look at Gene Chiswick's getaway year, fired year, and moments like that in history. Well, I mean, since the spring, since the boosters tried to fire him back in the spring. Ever since then, it has been a countdown to this happening. We knew it was coming, and it makes you wonder, and I brought this up in the postgame show the other night, would Auburn have been better off if they had just done it back in February or March?
Should have. Yep. I mean, you would have had to have it probably an interim coach this year. But what's the difference? You're about to have an interim coach right now.
Oh, you probably could have gotten Hugh Freeze if that's who it's going to end up being back then.
You know, and that is the question now, is who is going to be the guy going forward. And you heard Klatt. He just doesn't think it's a good job right now.
Yeah. I was told by some very reliable sources that Mrs. Harsin in the area, the box seats area where she sits, that she was walking around thanking everybody in her box and in the area of the boxes for being so nice to her and her family since they arrived to Auburn, almost like she knew it was coming. She was saying goodbye to everybody in the box-seated area where the Harsin family sits during games.
Well, you know, you wonder how we're going to look back on this really just quick tenure for Brian Harsin, and it's going to cost Auburn a lot of money. But you got to get the right guy in, and although Klatt feels it's not a very good job, and I think there's probably a lot of college football experts out there that don't feel it's a good job, you still got to remember that Tennessee wasn't a good job before Heupel got it. Ole Miss really wasn't a good job before Lane was there.
So Brian Harsin is out at Auburn. John Cowin has told Mississippi State he's leaving, so Cowin will be the next announcement from Auburn as the AD, and then they will start the national search for the next head coach, with John Cowin leading that way as the athletic director of the Auburn Tigers.